And when you're tired and you don't think you could go anymore, and you look at the mountain and you can't go any further, you can. The only thing that is stopping you is you. And when you remove yourself, the sky is the limit. So just sometimes get out of your own way and see the resiliency and see how many people are cheering you on and the impact that will have on millions in your community and outside.
Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. Hey guys, how you doing? Just got finished an amazing conversation here with two brothers, Kyle and Brent Pease, who are two-time Iron World Championship finishers, and they broke in 2024 the push assist course record. Kyle, born with cerebral palsy, and his brother Brent compete in these triathlons and most recently in the Ironman. They've run 100 plus races, just phenomenal example of this resilience and teamwork and, staying in this place of gratitude. The story that they share about their journey and overcoming the obstacles and the disabilities, the physical disabilities that Kyle endures on a daily basis, but also to accomplish such an incredible goal around being just competing in a triathlon, let alone an Ironman championship in Kona, Hawaii, and then coming out with the world record on the push assist course. So it's just really incredible journey that they've shared, and the stories and how it relates to business and relationships. It's a must listen. Appreciate you guys being here. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and we will see you soon. Thanks you so much. Kyle, Brent Pease, welcome to the show. Super excited. Two-time Ironman World Championship finishers in Kona, Hawaii. They just broke the push assist course record of with a 14-hour, 8-minute, and 3-second, I think it was, time to finish the Ironman. Kyle and Brent are brothers, and they also have another brother named Evan who grew up together in sport. Kyle, I think you have a degree from Kenshaw, is it, in sports management?
Yeah, Kenshaw State.
Yeah, Kenshaw State. And then so they are the co-founders of the KPF, which is the Kyle Pease Foundation, which raises money to support people with disabilities in sport. And they run inclusive employment programs. They support hundreds of athletes, have raised well over $10 million in this pursuit of supporting others and empowering people with disabilities to get out and do things. They wrote a book called Beyond the Finish. They're keynote speakers, just complete sports nuts, as I understand it, as you guys were growing up. And Brent, you went to Florida State University. And so what did I miss? What would you add in there that I might have missed?
I think you covered the game pretty well.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle. So guys, we will obviously add some video links and I just want the listeners to understand, so what happens here is, of my understanding is, Brent and Kyle team up together to do Ironmans, and which is a swim, run, bike.
Swim, bike, run.
Swim, bike, run. Sorry. Thank you. And what are the mileages on those, just so we can bring it to the forefront of people's minds?
2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon, 26.2 miles running, 140.6 miles.
Exhausting.
Really.
Dude, I don't know how you guys do it. But so Kyle, you were born with cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
and you're wheelchair bound. And so they team up together. And Kyle, you are in a kayak, I believe. And Brent, you tow the kayak through the swim,
Mhm.
push on the run, and on the bike, you guys tandem together with Kyle at the front of the bike, I believe. That's the pictures I saw.
Correct.
I would just love to dig in, like, I remember when my wife showed me the first pictures, and I went, oh, how is that like? How is that possible for both of you? Because the emotional and mental fortitude, Kyle, that you must have for 14 hours to participate. I'm making assumptions here, but participate, play full out, keep the momentum, the coaching, and then Brent, on your side, the physicality and the other emotional and mental fortitude on that side. Like, this has got to be crazy. But, so I'm kind of curious on that, but I'm really curious on what the meaning is that you've gotten from this journey of doing this. Because one thing I didn't mention, I don't think, at the beginning, is like, you guys have done like 100+ different style of races. Like, this is not, you haven't done just 2 Ironmans. You've done like tons of triathlons, 5K
Mhm.
runs, the Boston Marathon, like all this stuff.
You summed it up or said it really nicely. The physicality for me it's a tremendous lift. Kyle's a 125-pound human being, and I'm literally carrying him for 140.6 miles. But the emotional toll, the adrenal fatigue, and how hard Kyle has to work mentally, like it gets lost sometimes. Because you think, what does he do? It's like, can you imagine just being the most positive force in the world for 15 hours when we're racing? Like, because that's what he has to be. Because if he starts crying, if he starts complaining, then we're toast. But that's also why we were drawn to this stuff, is that it allowed us to tap into Kyle's um, full self, full potential. He always was an athlete at heart. He was always a sports fanatic, of a lover of all. Like, he just loves competition. He loves baseball and basketball in particular. If his teams aren't on, he's the guy who's like who watches Wednesday Night Baseball anymore? It's like Kyle does. That's who watches it. He's on because he just loves watching it, and now he gets to express that. And you see what a talented athlete he is, because of what he can push his body through. Ironman isn't for everybody. I mean, less than 1% of triathletes set foot on the Ironman in Hawaii. Kyle's done it twice, and so it it's something that we both really enjoy. And I think the biggest thing that we've taken from it is actually what we've been talking a lot about for the last year or so, is gratitude. Just this deep appreciation at what we're capable of and what we have and what we've persevered through together and accomplished together, where, we kept looking at those early accomplishments as well, why didn't this happen? Why didn't Dwayne, contact us for his podcast when we did our first Ironman? That was 2013. And it was like, why didn't we get a phone call from, pick some other medium, television, whatever, video, and the answer was, it didn't matter, because we needed to learn to appreciate so much what we've been able to share and accomplish together. And so when we measure it now, it's not one Ironman. It's an accumulation of 15 years of doing this together and a lifetime as brothers.
That's beautiful. Oftentimes inside of conversations, I'll reflect back for people who are in business, because this is still a business. Although it's a business podcast, it's really not. We talk so much about mindset, talk so much about personal growth, so much about relationships. But I always like to make sure, like, it's like that journey that you take. It's like, oh, overnight success in 15 years. It's what it like really sounds like to me.
For
It's like, you
sure.
guys have done the thing that needs to be done for so long. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, now we're able to influence others at a level that we couldn't, because we had to follow that path.
100%.
Kyle, do you mind if I just ask you, like, from a gratitude standpoint, from the positivity place of like, because there's every single picture I see of you, you have this like massive smile on your face, which is like amazing. How do you do it? Like, what and what have the struggles been for you to kind of really keep that positive momentum and that place of gratitude?
I think that it was ingrained into me by my parents, by my brothers. They really taught me the what a good attitude and how far that goes in life. And look, I think that my challenges are visible. You can see my challenges, and although you don't know what I go through on a daily basis, it is a struggle. But I choose to look at my life as I get to do this. I don't have to do this, and to do something um that I'm passionate about and get to show others what I'm truly capable of is everything. So I look at it as an opportunity to showcase my ability rather than my disability.
I love that, man. Do you mind if I just, I'd love to go. So, sorry, I'm just
Dwayne,
making,
while you're pulling that up, can I throw a little business thing at you? Because we're, Kyle and I run a business as well.
yeah.
When you were kind of responding to some of that and then even asking Kyle about it, like the most basic thing, that we teach people when it comes to doing what we do athletically or professionally is like just showing up. Like that, if you can start with that as a baseline, because in athletics, it's an easier way to describe it. Like there are days we do not want to be on the bike. There are days we do not want to get in the pool. I mean, Kyle and I have done 8-hour bike rides in the middle of the Georgia, summers. And it's like, if we just show up, it may not be pretty that day, but that's when you can finally smile. Like what you see at the finish line or in the race photos is the tip of the iceberg. What you don't see is the days where we get on the bike in silence because we don't really feel like being there. And it takes us a minute to talk to each other. I mean, one of our greatest stories includes a 4-hour bike ride that neither of us can remember speaking to each other the entire bike ride. Like we just kind of sat there and went through the motions, and we're both miserable, so like when you were saying that, I just like that was resonating with me, that it's what, we've got this employment program for people with disabilities. And it's like, we're just teaching them at a baseline, you need to be here, just show up and we'll help you figure out what this job is and what this company is. So just wanted to pop that in there and share that as well.
No, I love it because I thought about that so many times. Like you guys are brothers too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have an amazing relationship, and I'm sure you also probably argue, bitch, fight with each other and disagree and all that kind of stuff. And so you still have that brotherly stuff going on that you have to also, kind of overcome through the whole process of the showing up. That's got to be, which I would love. I would love in a minute here to hear some stories about how difficult that's been in the past. But it's like that brotherly love. But Kyle, do you mind if I just, so here were the notes, the high points of what I took out from what you just said was, like, initially it was your parents and your brother's influence, to have a positive mindset and, identifying the struggle, but the mindset of I get to versus I have to. And then you showcasing your ability versus your disability. And all those are like unbelievable mindsets. If you don't mind, and I have a lot, I have a couple of friends. I have a friend who does Ironmans, and he is an amputee. And so he competes. He competed actually in Kona. He might have been there in 2024. I just texted him before the show to see. He's one of my best friends. And then I have another best friend that's, been in a wheelchair and had an accident, severed his spine, and been in a wheelchair since he was 16 years old. And so I'm just curious, growing up, where did it start and how did you gain the momentum in order to like really be able to stay on the positive side, obviously more often than not? And how did you maintain that momentum and carry it forward so that you didn't turn to, I'll call it the dark side, but the negativity and because a lot of people can buy into those stories. And it doesn't matter if you're able-bodied or not able-bodied, like we all suffer from this. But I'm curious how you live through that experience.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that for me, I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. There are a lot of dark days, but in my own professional and life experiences, the dark side, it made me stronger, and it made me appreciate the gratitude that Brett was just talking about a couple minutes ago, and what that all entails. So sometimes, in order for you to see your goodness, your whole purpose in life, you have to go through the dark times. You have to embrace those. You know, I say you have to embrace the suck in order to see your abilities. And I'm a true believer that in order to maintain a positive attitude, you have to see and go through the dark times again to appreciate everything that you have for you.
What do you do? I'm going to ask the same questions with Brent anyways, but what do you do, Kyle? Like when you get into those dark moments, and we all have them, and what strategies have you created that work for you in order to make the shift? I've always found like one of the things that I've been working on almost all my life is like just reducing the time and distance between, the stimulus that might get me in a down place, and how fast and how quickly, like I've challenged myself to race myself to getting out of that, because I know it's just a story I'm trapping myself into, but we all do it. What are some of the like techniques that you use that a listener could kind of maybe potentially use for themselves to kind of shift out of that?
Yeah, I think you're making it earlier in the conversation. I'm a man of faith, so prayer and meditation is really important to me. So whenever I go to a dark place, I get to take a step back sometimes and see how I can approach it differently. Uh, or say a prayer or listen to music that motivates me to get out of that spot, and then focus on what me and Brett have built in our platform through the Kyle Pease Foundation. Brings me a lot of joy. And then I love quotes as well. So, like when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Um, that's one of my go-to. So I get to really try to visualize myself getting out of the dark hole through prayer, and music, and different tools that I have gained throughout my life.
I'm I'm with you, man. You use the quote, the when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I was born in 70, so I'm in my early teens when Rocky movies come out and the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies come out, right? And like that's such a foundational like thing for me to visualize. Do you visualize stuff like that, or what is it? What's it look like for you?
Oh yeah, I think somebody asked me the other day what my favorite movies are, and I definitely say all the Rocky movies. Like if that just get you going, I don't know what will. So I love the small guy overcoming the obstacle too.
Mm.
Uh, like Rudy, and nobody that has any, n- nobody that has a chance to showcase what they can do. But when they get that ability to showcase, it's amazing, and it's a movement that draws people in.
Yeah, that is awesome. Brent, I mean, I'm curious from your perspective too. Then, same thing. What's been the meaning from the Ironmans? What's been the massive learning, and what drives you to get through those shitty training days that like are sometimes just awful? And
Well, we kind of, you know, maybe touched on it or alluded to it, is like, you know, if we evaluate each race, you know, it would be really easy to kind of pick apart and go, gosh, we were so negative in that one moment, or we really struggled through that mile. But when we look at it across 140.6 miles, like that's a really long time. And just like 365 days can be a long time for some people. I've learned for us to, you know, to be able to think about 140.6 miles of racing, like we got it right. It doesn't mean we didn't struggle. And, you know, for the last 15 years, like the results are a reflection of all of the work that's been put in. But that doesn't mean that we didn't have challenges or hard days. And so, you know, I try to remember that, and I try not to look at it and, you know, and think about it moment to moment, but to really take one step back. Like getting through an Ironman sometimes is really helpful, maybe to get at the root of what you're kind of asking, to make things a little bit smaller, you know, to narrow our focus. And like we've got a story of the Ironman in 2018 in Hawaii, where I was really struggling, and Kyle just literally coached me from cone to traffic cone to traffic cone. And these cones were 5 feet apart, maybe, you know, and I would jog to a traffic cone, and then Kyle would say, good job, go to the next one, you know, and I'd jog to the next one. And like every impulse in my mind was screaming at me to just walk or quit, you know, because it was just torturous what I was experiencing physically.
Mm.
And Kyle basically said, don't worry about what's going on between your ears, listen to my voice. Right. So when I go back and look at that race, you know, then when I'm trying to evaluate it, I can actually step back and look at the whole mountain, and I can say, we climbed that damn mountain. You know, we did 140.6 miles, or I can say for the last 15 years, we've literally been climbing a mountain and there's no end in sight. Like every time we get above the clouds, there's another set and we can't tell where the summit is. So it's both for me. It's being in that moment where I don't want to do a workout to just say, okay, can you get in the water and just start swimming? Can you do that much? Because you might feel better if you start, right? And in a race, when you're struggling, can you do just one step? If you can do one step, you could do two. Or if you could jog 5 feet, you could jog 5 miles, you know? And once you've finished and accomplished that, then the gratitude can take over and you can step back and go, look at this, you know, look at what you just did. Like the mountain is such a great visualization for me. It's like when you're climbing the mountain, don't look at the summit. Not yet. Look at what's, you know, look at the motion that you're making right in front. Like watch your feet make those steps and feel accomplished with each step, however hard it may be. But when you finish, man, take one step back and look. Look at what you just did. And that can really shift the perspective in what you accomplished.
Gratitude, perseverance, whatever word that you want to put in there, is all around. And to Fred's point, sometimes you just have to take a step back and let those come in and let them saturate your whole body and your whole mind. Because if you don't let those words come in, you can't feel them, and you rob yourself of those words, those active words, to come in and do a work with you. And so it's true. You get to have to take a step back and focus on what you're doing one step at a time instead of looking at 140.6 or 14 hours.
Kyle, you just said something there that I thought was, you know, I'd love to get some distinction on. I think you said gratitude. I wrote it down, but let gratitude, and then I think you used perseverance, but I just threw in the word gratitude. Gratitude saturate. I think you said your whole body, which is different than just letting it saturate your mind. I'm just curious, is there a distinction for you or you, Brent, as well? Like where gratitude has to like be in the body, because that's a physiological thing, not a mental thing, or
Yeah.
not an emotional thing. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. And in athletics, especially, the mind goes before the body does, right? And what's hard for Kyle is that even if he feels those moments, he works so hard to keep his mind in that right frame. So when he's like, when Kyle's saying that, I can visualize it, like saturating his whole body, where his visualization in that moment is, let me take these straps off of my body. Let me get out of this wheelchair and I'll carry you, brother. Right? Because what's happening to me is my mind is begging me to stop, because it's all these alarm bells are going off. Like, your back hurts, your feet hurt, you're struggling. We should stop, because the mind is saying this is not what it's supposed to feel like, and so then I start to have the same visualization of, Kyle getting out of the chair and physically kind of, putting his hand on my back and pushing me and getting me to move. And so, like, what Kyle's describing is what happens is that thought that enters our mind of keep going, that feeling of perseverance, the overwhelming feeling of gratitude of doing it together, doesn't just enter the mind, it saturates our whole bodies. And that's what keeps us moving forward, is that, this whole thing was always born out of love, and that love poured into gratitude, and that love poured into perseverance, that we can take one more step together. And that one more step turns into, 140 miles, 140.6 miles of gratitude and of perseverance. So Kyle said it beautifully. It's what we both experience, and perhaps what's helped us both feel so successful in those moments is that we allow that to take hold. We allow it to happen.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, it's so true to life, right? The mind goes before everything.
Yeah.
we might not see it at the time, but it happened way before, the mind leaves the relationship before, the physical body leaves the relationship, or, or your health, or your fitness, or your business, or whatever it is. And it could be your faith, as Kyle mentioned earlier. There was 3 things that I kind of wrote down. Was one, like Brent, you had mentioned about, like, what's the big picture, but then you talked really about narrow focus, and taking like the one cone at a time, and then you made a comment about the mountain never ends, and sometimes there's this point where people give up, whether in any area of their life. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about the difference between it being, either whether you call it loving the process or versus achieving the goal. But like sometimes people just get so exhausted because they look at it and go, holy shit, this is never going to end. And I love that piece about the, narrowing the focus and just taking one step at a time. But I'm just curious if you guys have anything to add to that.
So at our very first Ironman, which I think that was 2013. I think in those years we were focused on outcomes, because that's what we thought would make these shifts. This would be the thing. This would be the tipping point that attention would turn to us, or the business would be successful because of whatever we did, without appreciating how much we loved the process, loved going through it. And what connected it for us in that moment is it was in Madison, Wisconsin. And the marathon is a 2-loop course. So you start in downtown Madison, you leave downtown, you run out to the university and out on this trail, blah, blah, blah. Come back into town and you do it all over again. As we were leaving downtown, a friend of ours had finished the race. He didn't have to carry somebody, so we'll let him be faster. And he was having dinner on the patio somewhere. It was like a beautiful fall evening, and we were already struggling. We were like 1 mile into this marathon, and he popped up out of his chair and he pointed directly at Kyle and he screamed at him and he said, "There are people cheering for you that you don't even know." And then he just sat back down, and that sat with us for the whole first loop, where it was like the way we think about it and the way Kyle says it is, you never know the impact of that next step. There were moments that we both were like, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. And that next step was the one that got us into Hawaii for the first time, or there was moments where it was like, gosh, it is so hard to run a business. And that next step was the one where you met the donor that that unlocks something for you, or the event or the podcast. So it's really hard in that moment because, like you said, the mind, or as we're saying, the mind is going first. It's begging you to make it feel easier. Or we're hardwired from years of evolution of, looking for easier ways to do things, right? Why, hunt in the forest for weeks on end, when we can shop at a grocery store, right? And so we willingly seek these things out. And so we have to stay in it. We have to stay in that discomfort, because on the other side of it is usually when you unlock it. And that's why the process is so critical. By staying in that and experiencing it and loving it and going through it, that's when you, again, like as I said earlier, is like now you can step back and look at the whole mountain and see the whole picture a little bit more clearly because you stayed in it and didn't walk away from it.
Kyle, you looked like you were about to say something.
No, that was pretty good.
It was pretty good. Like earlier you said Kyle coached you and through the the pylon to pylon, and so I guess Kyle, here's like I have questions around the coaching, around obviously you're a massive sports fan, and my hallucination is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Kyle plays a massive part in the coaching side of this team. Kyle, what have you learned from coaching that you never thought you would learn, and how's it shaped you? How's it allowed you to influence not just Brent, but on your other journeys, but all the other things that you inspire people to do? I'm curious what coaching has done for you.
It had given me a unique perspective to look within um look within the individual and see what you can get out of them. See that you could just go one step further and see how that next step can make it better for you and for the team. So I think that is one um takeaway that I have taken away, and that um the next step could be a game changer for you. And then I learned a lot about resiliency. Um, resiliency is one of those buzzwords for me that get me going. And when you're tired and you don't think you could get going anymore, and you look at the mountain and you can't go any further, you can. The only thing that is stopping you is you. And when you remove yourself, um, the sky is the limit. So just sometimes get out of your own way and see the resiliency and see how many people are cheering you on and the impact that will have on millions in your community and outside.
So, in regards to resiliency, when just in regards to you guys as a duo, Kyle, like, what are some of the triggers that you see happen in Brent before he may see them, and how do you kind of coach through those?
I think the the bike is the major indicator for me. We're pretty close to each other, so for the most part, he can hear me pretty well. Whereas when he's in the water, he can't hear me that well. Um, so we've been doing this for 15 years now, and I know that when the when the bike starts to slow down, or when there's um a moment of discouragement, or I get hear breath, my boy got to his breath. That's when I guess um imagine doing this with him and putting my hand behind behind his back and focusing on just one revolution at a time. I guess, how can I be the best brother I could be during this time? How can I show up for Fred? And it might be with phrases, it might be with "I love you, I'm grateful for you," or it might be, "Hey man, like we gotta get going. We gotta move, and we're gonna move together."
It's also the gratitude that we spoke of earlier that, you know, you alluded to it. We're still brothers. We can jump at each other and get testy and fight. And, I think sometimes we can all get caught up in our own, like, team me sometimes. And it's easy sometimes for Kyle to be like, why can't you push the pedals any better than this right now? Or why can't you run more than one pylon right now? Like, how hard can this be? And it's like, you don't know either. Like, as good as I do what we're each going through. And meaning we really don't. Like, I have a really strong sense because we're brothers and there's a deep connection and a vulnerability that we'll share with each other. But there's now a much better understanding after years of doing this of, it probably is hard right now. So let me just try something different this time. Let me not scream and yell and let my frustration pour over. Let me just understand that the way I described it, I did this recently. This is a great way. If I turn on the water and I say it's too hot and Kyle said it's just right, we're both probably right because we're feeling something different and it's the same. And so when we're in the middle of the lava fields in Hawaii and I am baking in the sun and I am losing energy with every single step I take, Kyle doesn't necessarily know what that feels like, but I don't know what it feels like to sit there powerless in a chair with the only thought powering Kyle through is like, no matter what I do, I must be the best brother and teammate in the world. And that's why we say, like, that has got to be so challenging for 14 or 15 hours to stay in that space, to never back down an inch and never say, this is hard for me. And so it's really about being open to the idea that whatever they're saying about the water is true. And so when Kyle says, like, hey man, can I have something to eat? I'm not going to snap at him and go, I got to eat first, dude. I'm hungry. It's like, he's hungry right now. His body's been going through it too. Feed him, and when we're dealing with it on the run and he's asking me to go one more step, he's asking both of us to go one more step. It's not just for me to move, it's for both of us. And so that is the extra layer that's helped us, only strengthen the relationship and only strengthen us as athletes.
Like, guys, this is so powerful because this connection is so true. Like, and even in our intimate relationships, that's what I was, when you were saying that about, you guys have been bound and you go through this, but you really don't know how he feels. He doesn't really know how you feel. And one of the things that I've found in my own personal growth is like, one of the hardest things to deal with is vulnerability, or at least it was for me. I shouldn't say it's hard for everybody. It was hard for me. And so, and before vulnerability, I think courage has to step in. So you have to have the courage to be vulnerable, and the sense of vulnerability, Kyle, that you must have in that environment. It's got to be like, to me, it's mind blowing.
Kyle doesn't have a choice but to not be vulnerable every day, right? Somebody has to feed him and somebody has to take him to the bathroom and somebody has to see him in his vulnerable state as he is at all times of his life. He can't shut the door and deal with his feelings. He's basically sharing them on his sleeve, and that is always a connection point for everybody in our family, that it's okay to share your feelings. It's okay to not be okay. And endurance sports is a wonderful way to do that. Like, when you're going through it, like, it's the beauty of what we do. Like, there was 2,800 people in Hawaii. They're all going through something. We were surrounded, like, there was a guy from Atlanta racing with us who we passed him and without realizing he was struggling, and then found out later he passed out. He fell down on the race course 2 miles short of the finish line and never finished the race. Right? Like, how vulnerable of him to just be in that position for that to even happen, or to let himself have a chance at success, And so Kyle teaches us all that. And so, it's another skill for us in racing and life, for him to say, "How you doing?" And I've gotten better and better over the years to say, "I'm not okay. This doesn't feel good. This is hard." And then Kyle can then say, "Okay, how about we just go 5 feet together?" Right?
Yeah.
So, it is something that Kyle has to deal with on a daily basis, but so do we all, if you're willing to stay in it and open up about it.
Breaker said something that really is powerful. It's okay to say that you're not okay. And more people need to hear that it's okay to be vulnerable with people and to share what you're going through, because uh, then, then people can help you along the way. And I think that it's just such a great visualization of what me and Brett do to answer all the Iron Man that we get to do this together, and that we get to put a hand on each other and say, we could do this together. We can't do this alone, but we can do this together. It doesn't work without Frank, and it doesn't work without me.
Kyle, over the years, what wisdom would you share to the audience about vulnerability? Because I think this is a really huge conversation, in that the human mind cannot have or experience two emotions at the same time. And oftentimes, Tony Robbins calls it a figure eight. We will loop from whether depression or anger to happiness, gratitude, whatever. So there's the empowering emotion and the disempowering emotion. And I'm curious, what would you share with the audience about your learning of acceptance of vulnerability over the years, and how you've kind of, I'll use the word train, but I don't, whatever the word is for you, yourself to kind of really open yourself up to it, and what have been some of the struggles?
For sure. I mean, Brett said it, I don't have a choice. I have to share with with my family, with my caregivers, with my peers, that I need help, and that some of my help is gonna be on the internet level, and um, I can't hide it, and not I can't go, I can't, I can't, I can't go around it either. I have to face it head on, um, and I need people to help me face it head on. So I think that you know, instead of sidestepping your vulnerabilities, tackle them head on, and bring people along to help you make a difference in your vulnerabilities.
What's been the most difficult part for you to like be able to transcend, from that, like you said, asking for help, and then it gets into an intimate level, which is where people struggle. Like, people struggle being intimate about their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions. But where would you say, like, what was the thing that if there was one thing or two things that you had to overcome to get to that place, what would they have been?
Really, the power of positivity really helped me to overcome. I say this when we are talking to companies and podcasts. Every day, I'm reminded of my reality. When somebody picked me up from my bed, it put me in my wheelchair. Every day, that's my reality. And I could sit and soak in it and be sad about it. Or I could choose to look at it as, yeah, let's go. the platform that I was getting, and I get to do it with my brother, and I'm gonna do my damn best to make a difference every day. It's a way out to do it. So that's where I choose to look at my vulnerabilities. That yes, it can be a burden sometimes. It can even be a challenge, but I want to show people that get through my unique perspective of life that your vulnerabilities can be your biggest allies too. They can help you overcome whatever you're facing.
Yeah, it's like the word I wrote down was meaning. It seems like you just choose the meaning that empowers you and creates that positive momentum. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so if that's not the word, like please
No, that's
push back on
perfect.
it.
No, I did. That's a great word.
Mm-hmm.
As we've been talking, like it came up a couple times because you guys are obviously you're driving a business, you're creating an opportunity for people through through the foundation. What's harder, business or Ironman?
Depends on the day. I mean, right now, we've got 18 people. We're raising, $3 million a year. It's a thing. It's a lot of work. But 2 years ago, when we were in the thick of training for an Ironman, you know what I would say? The hardest thing is that real balance is an illusion. People talk about balance all the time, but true balance is knowing when to be all in and what to be all in on, right? And so in 2024, Kyle and I spent most of our energy in preparing for the Ironman in Hawaii and raising the money that we said we were going to raise as part of that. After the Ironman, that was the time to be all in on family, all in on business and shifting that, and so that's the real challenge for us, is knowing where to invest our energy, because, we've built this thing up over the years that what we do personally is still part of it. The speaking, the podcast, the racing, like that's all still part of it. But, Kyle's managing a team of 8 people now, of many of whom have never worked before. We've got a young man that's 31, Emmanuel, 32.
Yeah.
Emmanuel's 33 years old. Geez, I was way off. But Emmanuel had never had a job till he was 30 years old. So he's coming to Kyle constantly wanting to, figure things out and talk about what's going on, and like even understanding some simple things of like how to put your email signature, how to set it up. So, but that's where Kyle's investing a lot of energy this year. So I don't know that either one is harder. I think it's just knowing when we need to be investing energy because of the way we've set it up for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
To be all in on whatever that thing might be.
This is a great conversation, especially around business, because balance, like, you hear so many times like, oh, you got to balance your life. You got to have this work-life balance and all that stuff. I'm agree with you. Like, I love how you phrased it. Balance is an illusion. To me, it's more about an integration. And sometimes you're integrating harder in one area than you are in another. And it's choice. Life is about choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, like on this notion with you guys, is like, how do you prioritize? How are you guys prioritizing? Because I guess I'm sure doing the athletic side of what you guys do leads to promotion, it's online content, it's all that kind of stuff, which then helps you serve others and feed the mission. Do I have that kind of on a bumper
Yeah,
sticker pretty
absolutely.
accurate? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so if you guys are like, how do you guys look at it and just go, I'm curious how you guys prioritize and how you kind of juggle all the stuff that you got going on.
Oh, we do a terrible job at it right now in this moment. Like literally in no, because we made a concentrated effort to spend more energy getting on more podcasts.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for that conversation. The follow-up will happen next week. We appreciate you guys listening. I hope that it's, my hope that we bring a perspective and shared story that helps you grow and build awareness to the areas of life that you want to improve. That's the mission. And, progress is where we meet happiness. And so keep growing, keep living, keep dreaming. Appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or coworker who could benefit from this conversation, please share the link. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. And if this podcast has supported you in any way, please support us by clicking the follow or subscribe button.